Before we close, quick reminder. If you've been listening to this podcast and you know you do not need more information, you need structure. We built something for that. The Eminence Circle. A discipleship leadership room for people who are done drifting and ready to take responsibility for their own life. It's application-based and limited. If that sounds like you, go to eminencelegacylife.com and apply. Some people listen, others build. It's time to build your legacy. Let me say something most people won't realize until they've already built a life they don't recognize. You didn't lose yourself. You trained yourself to become someone else. Welcome back to the Eminence Legacy podcast. I'm Jose Luis Cadena Jr. And today we're not talking about failure. We're talking about what happens when you become successful at being someone you were never meant to stay as. You didn't fall behind. You didn't lose control. You adapted. You learned how to move under pressure, how to respond instead of react, how to carry weight without showing it, how to become reliable, needed, respected. And that version of you, it worked. You actually got somewhere. It produced results. It created stability. It earned trust. So you stayed there. Not because it was you, but because it got outcomes. It got results. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily wrong or bad, but that's the part nobody wants to admit. You didn't become the wrong person. You became the effective one. And now you're stuck, choosing between what works and what's real. Because the truth is, you didn't lose yourself. You replaced yourself with what was required to survive. And the survivor version don't ask permission. They take over. Survival is not necessarily good. Survival is where nothing grows. At first, it's subdual. You adjust how you speak, what you prioritize, and how you showed up. You stop saying certain things. Start saying what's expected. You shifted your identity to responsibility. And again, that's not wrong. But over time, that version of you starts winning. So you lean into it, not because it's aligned, but because it's effective. Let me make this uncomfortable for a second. The version of you that people respect right now might not even be the real you. It's a version that performs best. The question here is, are you aligned with who you are meant to be? Now hear this clearly, because this is where most people lie to themselves. Just because it's working doesn't mean it's right. And just because it hasn't collapsed doesn't mean it won't cost you. See, the truth is misalignment doesn't always break what you built, but it will limit how far it can go. It creates a ceiling. Eventually you become stagnant. You stop expanding. You stop evolving. You stop feeling connected to what you're building. And if it doesn't cap you, it charges you somewhere else. Your energy, your clarity, your relationships, your peace. Because eventually something gives. Something always gotta give. If not what you built, then you. You got better at being who you needed to be and slowly stopped being who you are. And here's the part most people don't want to face. What got you here might not be what grows you from here. Because you didn't just build a life. You built a version of yourself to sustain it. And now the question becomes, is that version still true? Or just familiar? Ask yourself that question. There's a difference between building something that works and becoming who you were actually created to be. Because success without alignment will always feel incomplete. Not because you failed, but because you never stopped to ask, does this still reflect who I'm becoming? So what do? Not everything, just this. Identify the version you stepped into, not what you built, who you became to build it. Separate effectiveness from truth. Just because it works doesn't mean it's aligned with the true self. Start realigning. Don't restart. You don't burn it down. You bring yourself back into it. So ask yourself this. Where in your life are you operating as someone you no longer recognize? And more importantly, how long have you known? Because next, we're not talking about the replacement. We're talking about the reason you stayed there. This isn't for everyone, but if this hit you, you already know why. Legacy builders don't just build results, they stay aligned with who they are becoming. So don't just listen to this. Stay connected. Follow the podcast so you don't default back into the version that only works but isn't real. And if you're listening through a link or on Chrome, go follow on Spotify or Apple, because this isn't something you visit. It's something you built with. Most people will hear this and stay exactly where they are because what they built works. But a small percentage will recognize something deeper and make that shift. The question is, which one are you? This is the Eminence Legacy podcast. And remember, you didn't lose yourself. You replaced yourself. Now the real work is deciding if you're going to stay there. Together, let's rise to our eminence. Catch you in the next one. This episode of Eminence Legacy podcast is brought to you by FE26 Legion. Built for disciplined, not the distracted. Every FE26 design is released for a limited season and then retired into the vault. No restocks, no reruns. If you're wearing FE26, it's not because you followed a trend. It's because you live by a standard. Find the current season at fe26legion.com. Discipline remains, the legion endures.